What's going on, guys? Today's video is going to be, I want to wait for, a couple days till after I got back from my trip to make this. It's going to be my personal tips for planning a coach trip. Now, am I like an expert that's done like 10 of these in my life? No. But I did two, one last summer and one this summer. I can definitely say that there's a learning process involved in terms of the planning, how to do the trip, and these are just a couple of tips, personal tips that I would give myself for planning a coach trip. Some of it pertains to booking the hotel, some of it pertains to how you actually do the trip. And I think after doing two, I can definitely say that I have a pretty good grasp on this, and I have about seven that I'm going to list off in this video. Now, first one, and this has to do with booking the hotels. And I like to poke fun myself for this now, but that was definitely not the case at that time. Always read the most recent reviews, and do not be deceived if you see a 4 out of 5 but has like 61 out of 5s. So yeah, so pretty much when we were booking our most recent trip for this summer, we were trying to find just one hotel in Kingsport, I believe, as a layover before our big ride home or big drive home. We were going to stay at La Quinta. We saw 4 out of 5. Like, okay, that's good. Look at the reviews from this year. I see what that said like $50 in the event. I'm like, yeah, after that, I'm not giving this place a penny. And a lot of the other photos look pretty nasty too. So yeah, we end up, and this was, in my stupid, dumb ass, waited until an hour before we booked it to even look at those reviews. Yeah, thank God I did. But yeah, it's pretty much always read the most recent reviews before, like, don't just see a 4 out of 5 that go, oh, we're good. Because sometimes that's pretty far from the truth. Because, I mean, we had stayed at two hotels on our last trip that had a 4 out of 5 on TripAdvisor. I should be more clear. Those were sleeping and comfort in, and I did not think both of them were good at all. One of them had no air conditioning, which meant I didn't not get any sleep, and the other had no fridge, and the room was small, way too small for 4 people. That was sleeping in Sandusky. Yeah, those two were dumps. I don't really think I see myself staying at them again. This year with the hotels, I think we did overall significantly better, but there's another big thing that I'm gonna get to later on. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that one. Always read the most recent reviews. Don't be like me. You see a 4 out of 5 make it good, because that's not always true. Now, number two, wait to buy part tickets. And so, like, for example, this year we were going to do 2 days at Carowinds on my trip. The Fury incident happened a little over a week before I left for the trip, and a little less than 2 weeks before I was going to be at the park. So we decided, yeah, without Fury, that second day is worthless. And honestly, even being in the park, even with Fury, I don't think that second day would have been needed. So that was why I waited off on buying my tickets, even though we booked the hotels already. And in the end, I was really glad I did. And there's really no hurry to, unless you're planning the trip during a time of like where the park had capacity or something. But then again, who in their right mind would drive 10 hours to a park on a day where it could like capacity and you won't be able to ride anything? Not me. So yeah, and in the end, there's really no, unless you're that worried about the parquet capacity, there's no real advantage to buying tickets like more than a couple days before you go to the park. I personally like to do it before I leave for the trip because I don't really like trusting hotel Wi-Fi or something like that. But yeah, but pretty much my advice there is don't do it like too early. Don't do it like a month before you leave. Even like, I didn't mind like I left on the 8th and I bought, Busch Gardens. Also, another thing, if there's a sale or a discount, take advantage of it. $65 to get into Busch Gardens was a bargain. Yeah, thank you, 4th of July sale. And that was the difference between paying 65 and 130. It's a pretty significant difference there. And you don't need me to tell you that. And, so yeah, that's pretty much, my advice. Like, that's really the only time I would say get it early is if you see a sale like that. But otherwise, there's no real advantage. So that's pretty much it for that one. And another one, build in separate travel days so you don't wear yourself out. Like, I was not driving for, the trip we just did. My friend was, but if you're driving like 5 hours to get to a park, then you spend the full day at a park. If you get stuck in traffic, or something, then you're losing a lot of your day. So, in that sense, like we were gonna do, like I believe the original plan was to row at 6 o'clock in the morning, drive 5 hours to Kings Dominion, and spend all day. We ended up changing that, which worked out a lot better because we did run into some traffic in like my Baltimore D.C. area, but still having the separate travel day did allow us a lot more flexibility. We were at the park. It allowed us to maximize our time there a lot better. So, yeah, everyone's different, but that was what worked for us. I mean, what we did last year was, for Cedar Point and Kings Island, we drove up like early in the morning, but that was a 3 hour drive. That was like a 3 hour drive for each, roughly speaking, not a 5 hour drive. So yeah, but generally, this is up to the person's preferences. But building in separate travel days does allow you a lot more flexibility at the park. If you were to like run into traffic and the drive were to be longer, if you had to stop a bunch of times, the drive would be longer. Blah blah blah. Pretty much, that all pretty much sums that up. Now the next one, and this is one that I was not thinking I would put on here until I was actually on the trip this year. Always be ready for the unexpected. So, we checked in at the Best Western in Fort Mill, South Carolina on Tuesday, and it just so happened that when we checked in, there was a hotel-wide water issue, which meant toilet, sink, and shower in our room were all not working, and the fridge really wasn't working either. And it was like a whole hotel thing. The staff were well aware of it, but they were like really unsure in terms of when it was gonna get fixed and all that. For a while, it was like we kind of had to go across the street just use the bathroom, and not to mention I felt really sick that day, and I felt really sleep deprived. So I had to use the bathroom a lot, that was not the day that you wanted that, or not the day I wanted that anyway. But yeah, and it was a whole fiasco. We almost changed hotels right at midnight, even after already paying, but they were able to get fixed. But then the next night, I woke up at around like 3:30 in the morning, and this was the second night we were there, and I noticed the toilet being faulty again. So yeah, always literally that was one of the most unexpected scenarios, and it happened, and they even said that it's not common. So pretty much, my advice there in a nutshell: be ready for anything. Like even like a 2% chance of anything, be ready. So yeah. The next one, another one I learned from this year's trip: don't only focus on parks. Of course, a coaster road trip, you're focused on getting to as many parks and coasters as possible. However, if you're in a scenic area like we were, definitely, like when we were in Pigeon Forge, we did a whole sightseeing day in Pigeon Forge. We went on the mountain coasters, went to the island, and did some of the extreme attractions there. And with how beautiful the Pigeon Forge area was, that honestly ended up being, I think, the best day on the whole trip. And that wasn't even a full park day. And so yeah, if you're in like a scenic area, a very touristy area, do some sightseeing. Don't only focus on the parks. And plus, it allows yourself, somewhat of a break. And yeah, I mean, this trip, I definitely since we had that sightseeing day, I definitely felt like there was a lot more variety than my 2022 trip, where it was just parks, 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 parks. Which means generally that's the purpose of a coaster trip. But if you're in a touristy area like Pigeon Forge or, something like that, don't pass it up. Take some time, do sightseeing, even if it's a day. Yeah, and I definitely, because it is somewhat of a vacation after all. So yeah, really all I can say for that one. And now there's two more. One, build in time to take breaks when you're at the parks. Yeah, sure. I mean, especially at first timers, perspective is, get all the credits as soon as possible. But doing a trip like I just did down south in the middle of the summer, you're going to get some brutally hot days. And we sure did on this trip, especially I think the day at Dollywood was the worst. I think Carowinds where the temperature was the worst, but it wasn't too humid. Dollywood, though, I believe it was 92, and it felt over 100 with the humidity. And so, yeah. Of exhaustion from the heat in the day before, And I didn't end up having any breakfast, which was not something I want to explain as to how that happened. And the roughness of Mystery Mine, all odds, that's just for me. Didn't take long for all that to set in for me to really not feel good throughout the day. And so, yeah, this was just, I feel like, I wasn't taking enough breaks. So if you're at a park on a day like that, definitely allow yourself adequate breaks and don't overdo it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I like getting on all the coasters too, but if it's a day like that, I think not overdoing it and taking adequate breaks in the shade, the AC, is just as important, not more. And really, same can be said for playing like a Florida trip in the middle of the summer. You're gonna get some brutally hot days, and those are where you really want to just take your breaks, take it seriously. Yeah, I mean that's a general tip for really any park on a hot day like that. But yeah, your vacation is not where you want to wear yourself out if you can help it. And the last thing, don't make any dumb nut mistakes on the trip. At least try. Of course, all human beings, mistakes are gonna happen, but these are two that I made during this trip that were extremely avoidable, and I still question how these two happened. So when we were at Carowinds, 97 degrees, scorching sun. My dumbass did not put sunscreen on. I didn't realize until halfway through the day, and I got one of the worst summers I've had in a long time. Like the back of my neck was really burnt to a crisp. And I noticed when I got back to the room, it looked pretty nasty. But then when I was in Tennessee the next day in that almost 100-degree sun, oh boy, that wasn't pleasant. And so yeah, I still question, how I forgot on a day like that, but I did. Oh, that could be a result of, I was doing so many things I wanted rushing. But then the second one I'm about to explain, now there's no excuse for this one, and quite frankly, I don't even know why this happened. So my first ride on Lightning Rod, I had shorts with zero pockets, but they also had loose pockets. And I think I was just that excited or something. I had my wallet in my loose pocket, and then when we were on the ride, I still had it in that loose pocket, and it almost flew out in the quad down. Thank God I had literally 2 seconds, the grip of steel to catch it, but man, that was, my heart was pounding, and that was a big disaster waiting to happen. And when I got off, I was, I didn't even know what to say. So yeah. So, pretty much it. So.